Good evening and welcome to Blueprint Explosive Exclusive. I'm Madhavdas Gopalakrishnan. There's a fresh face-off brewing between an army veteran and Air India. And this one is over priority check-in and boarding for armed forces personnel. What was supposed to be a priority facility has now triggered a sharp row after an ex-army officer alleged that he was denied the boarding and humiliated at the airport. Let's take you through the entire route. Veteran Army officer Rohit Agarwal says that he was denied the priority check-in and boarding facility at the Kochi airport, calling his experience humiliating. He alleges that the staff refused to acknowledge this facility, forcing him to pull up Air India's own website and show them the rules. He has alleged that the experience was not just humiliating, it was also disgusting, and has questioned why the airline employees were not aware of the facility. Air India's response, however, has now added another twist to the row. The airline has clarified that there is no priority check-in or priority boarding facility for armed forces personnel under its updated privileges. Air India has asked the army officer to refer to its updated privileges, effectively saying that this facility is no longer applicable. So what did Air India actually promise in the year 2017? The first promise is of concessionary fares to armed forces personnel. The second promise, serving soldiers will be allowed to board the plane first. Now, this is what has been claimed by Air India, that the concessions for armed forces would be there, that it would be up to 50% off on tickets, additional baggage allowance and free rescheduling that would be allowed. Those privileges now appear to have been withdrawn. Let's quickly open this up and take it across to our guest. With us is Lieutenant Colonel Rohit Agarwal, Army veteran, who is in fact the person who put out those posts. We have Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, who is a defense analyst with us. We have also joining us Captain Saurabh Bhatnagar, former A320 pilot, and Captain C.S. Randhawa, President of the Federation of Indian Pilots, also with us. Let me start with you first and foremost. If we can get Lieutenant Colonel Rohit Agarwal, if you can describe what exactly transpired on that day. What was this privilege? Have you used it on multiple occasions in the past? And why suddenly was it withdrawn? Mr. Agarwal, can you hear me? All right, I think we can't get through Lieutenant Colonel Rohit Agarwal. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, is this a privilege that you have used being a service personnel? Is this something that you were informed before it was withdrawn? Can you take us through what exactly has happened?
Thank you, Madhav, and thank you to the co-panelists. First and foremost, of course, this is a privilege that was extended, and I do find sometimes, maybe as a veteran, I do walk up to them and tell them I'm a veteran. But if this facility has been withdrawn, it must be also being promulgated to everybody. Because otherwise, you know, like Rohit has been embarrassed, that embarrassment mustn't be caused to any ex-serviceman or a serving personnel. It's incorrect. Secondly, as regards the 50% concession that you were talking about, definitely tokenism is not acceptable, because invariably sometimes it does occur that your fares may be more because the dynamic fares they have dropped and the airfares being charged to the service personnel, and again the armed forces personnel, a huge category of the armed forces personnel, all of them then they feel that they're being cheated. There should be no feeling of cheating. There is no tokenism. World over, their concessions, you go to any of these, even America or anywhere, you will find that the announcement is made for all veterans or even for service personnel to board. However, of course, they are boarded after some, disabled people are there, they need to be boarded. But here, that facility was being extended. I did see at some airport that it does happen. But it is, of course, very sad if Roy has been embarrassed, humiliated, and if he's taken to writing like that, I'm sure he's hurt very badly. And therefore, it is much better that all airlines must say so clearly that no such privilege would be offered to service personnel. Be it 15th August, be it 26th January, no tokenism. We are all one, and therefore we do not intend to do that so that nobody expects it. Otherwise, the expectations are high, and therefore this embarrassment has been caused to him.
Captain Randhawa, it was Ashwini Lohani who on the occasion of 16th of August made this announcement. This was on occasion of the 71st Independence Day that he had said that we want to bring in this particular facility for our armed personnel who play such an important role, some amount of discount as well as boarding privileges that were announced at that point of time by Air India. Now, if Air India is withdrawing it, shouldn't that also be formally announced? Is this how service personnel are supposed to find out after being humiliated at the airport? Is a question that they are asking.
Good evening, Madhav and my co-panelists. First and foremost thing I would like to bring in that Air India, though they had made that announcement, they had not effectively implemented it. In fact, you'll be surprised that this has been withdrawn, but I don't know when did they implement it, because they were never adhering to these norms. In fact, even if you ever bought a ticket on, your defense services ID card, you couldn't even do a web check-in. So you had to go to the airport and then you have to identify. I've never seen any armed forces personnel being, told to board first. No announcement ever made. Never seen at any check-in counters. So Air India never implemented it. If it was implemented, it may be in some forward areas like Leh or Guwahati, some airfield. But most parts of the country, it was never implemented. And withdrawing it, again, there has to be an announcement made by the airline. Airline can't do it unilaterally. And after it is privatized, there is no question that they're giving any privilege. They're saying 50% of the basic fare. No way. At times, the fares of Indigo are much cheaper than Air India, even after the discount.
Forget that. Rohit Agarwal is saying that after applying the armed forces discount, the ticket prices went up. I mean, it's ridiculous if this is indeed happening. I don't know. I've not tried it, but this is what Lieutenant Colonel Agarwal is telling us. And I think I'd like to just get him in. He can share his experience firsthand with us and with our viewers. Lieutenant Colonel Agarwal, would you like to tell us what happened on that day? And you've also posted that actually using the armed forces discount, you saw that the ticket prices went up. I mean, that's mind-boggling.
Yes. So, firstly about the incident, I have used this priority boarding earlier because I had seen this news article way back in 2017, and ever since I have been availing of this. It's not a big deal. The aircraft is going to take off when it is going to take off. So whether you board 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late, it doesn't make a difference. Only thing is it gives you a nice feeling to be recognized, for your service to be recognized. So that is how. In fact, on my way, on my onward journey, I traveled by Air India Express, where a board was also put up that priority check-in for armed forces personnel. This was Air India Express. So I was quite horrified.
Okay, I'm sorry I have to interrupt you there, sir. I'm extremely sorry I'm interrupting you, because this is, of course, we want to come back to the story in just a minute. Massive development coming in. The second test has also proved positive. This is very, very big, because this is as far as the Air India pilot in command from Phuket to Delhi is concerned. Shefali joining us for more on this. Shefali, the confirmatory drug test is positive. This is big. It's massive. This means that here was a pilot who had a plane of about 137 passengers and at least 7 crew members who was flying high. This does not get bigger than this. The second dope test is positive. What is the ministry going to do now?
Right, Madhav, we are learning through our sources that the second confirmatory test is also positive now, which is a big thing for in terms of passenger safety as well. Whereas, although we do not have the details of what all come in the test, when this pilot in command has actually consumed the psychoactive substance, and what are all, but ministry will now have a full research on this, will take out the whole background data of this particular pilot, of all the flights that he has run, and when he has consumed this drug particularly. So a whole inquiry will set up. Also, we spoke to Minister Ram Mohan Naidu, where he said that strict reforms will come in place, where in regards to the drug test, we posed the question that if there is a strict laws for BA, if a pilot comes positive for BA, where there is a 3-month suspension, why there is no reform for if any kind of drug is being consumed by any of the crew member, by the pilots? To which the minister has responded, saying that we are working on that and we will bring strict reforms in this particular matter.
All right, this is a big development coming in. And Shefali, any specifics of what this particular drug is? What is a psychoactive substance that has been consumed? Was it a recreational drug? Do we know what it was exactly?
also been positive, but what kind of drug has he consumed, or was it because of the medicine, or if he has consumed any illegal drugs that are illegal here in India? So there are many things that now it will come in the investigation as well, and we are also trying to find out what exactly is the drug that he has taken for which he has come positive now. It's a big breaking.
Let me bring in fact, Captain Randhawa on this. Captain Randhawa, this is a big development. We were discussing this on Sunday and we were awaiting the second drug test. It's now perhaps beyond anybody's doubt that this was indeed a pilot who was flying high. He has consumed psychoactive substances which he was not supposed to.
Very surprising that the second test has become positive, because the confirmatory test conforms to the 6 various parameters which are given in the CR5F5. As per that, if you have consumed cocaine or barbiturates, or there are 4 more substances like this for which it is tested. Now, if any medicine has got one of these ingredients, that has to be seen, that what has the test actually specified. Now, there are 2 parts of the test. One is the toxicology, which has become positive. That means that the substance has gone into the organs of the pilot. The second part is the impairment test. Now, in the impairment test, it is not necessary that what is consumed has actually resulted in any wrong action by the pilot or a delayed action by the pilot. So that is yet to be established. And the point is that if you know that Air India, whatever information they have given to DGCA regarding the incident, that they have there was a transient hydraulic failure, triple hydraulic failure. Now this has led to a severe incident. Now at that time, it is this is what I learned from the sources, that the pilot in command was not on the seat. He was standing up and stretching his back and all that. And when this incident occurred, that time the first officer was on the controls, which will come out in the DFDR. So the first officer has taken the action. So that is one. And secondly, if one of your correspondent has just said that there is no penalty, no. The CR is very clear that you are sent when you are found positive, then you're sent to a rehab center. So until unless the rehab center certifies and come...
But Captain Randhawa, the proportionality of this is what I'm not able to wrap my mind over. When you have, several years ago, and you, of course, are an expert in this area, you remember when there were several cases of pilots failing the alcohol test, the breath analyzer test, it was made mandatory, right? Now you're talking about psychoactive substances, which could potentially have more calamitous impact in terms of actually, piloting an aircraft if the person is allegedly high, as now the second test has proved to be. But if the punishment is only rehabilitation and not suspension, what is the kind of punitive action that we are sending? How is it going to prevent people from actually carrying out such acts in the future?
You see, the CR was made based on the lines of FAA and EASA. But some of the countries, like, I have given an article in Indian Express that some of the countries like GCC or Singapore, there is suspension, the pilot is terminated and they take strict action and the license is suspended from that regulatory authority. So it depends from country to country that what is the regulation they make. Our regulations are based on EASA and FAA and they are in conformity. Whatever they normally do, we are doing it. So in case that has to be revised, then the DGCA has to take that call and revise and make it more
all right. I'm just to interrupt you there. Shilpi Jain, a passenger who was on board that plane, is joining us at this point of time. Shilpi Jain, now news coming in that the second test is also positive, that this pilot indeed had consumed some psychoactive substance, which while he was in fact the pilot in command as far as this aircraft is concerned. As a passenger who was on board this aircraft, does this confirm the worst of your suspicions?
It might be possible because the way he was talking to us, like to not record videos, and he was aggressive. His voice tone was aggressive when he was conducting this. When he came out of his cabin. So I cannot comment completely, but I think that might be the possibility.
No, and what is the kind of action that you think should be taken against a pilot if he has consumed such a substance while flying the aircraft? As a passenger, what do you feel?
I think test should be conducted before he was flying the flight, because I'm not sure why it is being tested after we are flying, after this mishappening. Shouldn't that be a normal procedure to conduct the test before flying the plane?
Yes, there should be normal procedure, just as in the case of alcohol. He will now be sent to rehabilitation is what we are told. And that is, of course, the information as far as the procedure is concerned in such cases. But Shilpi Jain, have you spoken to any of the other passengers since this particular incident? Because many of them have been seriously injured. We are told some of them still in the hospital. Have you been able to speak to any of your other co-passengers?
Yeah, I spoke with them, but my two friends, they were wearing the seat belts, so they are safe, but I was not wearing the seat belt. So I have a neck jerk. So yesterday also I went to neurophysician.
Okay.
So I am taking some medicines also. I think Air India should provide compensation for those who are injured, because this is very serious and they are not taking any accountability of the passengers being injured this way. And
Okay.
they should have conducted medical examination.
Shilpi Jain, please stay with us. I'm going to request you to stay on for just a moment. I'm sorry I'm interrupting you there. Captain Amit Singh of Safety Matters Foundation is now joining us on the broadcast. Captain Amit Singh, this is a huge development. The second test, the confirmatory test, has also come out to be positive. It's no longer a non-negative. One can say with some amount of clarity here that this is a pilot who has consumed something that he should not have, or in any event, even if it was a medication, should have clearly declared so.
Yeah, correct. So the first test is basically to identify that out of the 6 drugs, there is something which is common in the sample. But what is it? It cannot identify. That is why a confirmatory test is carried out to identify the exact the drug out of the 6 which has been consumed, or a similar drug. So different molecules can be present or they can mimic. So that is for the medical, the representative of the airline to determine whether it is an antidepressant which was taken by the pilot, self-medication, which is also kind of not the right approach. But obviously, these medications do have effect on the decision-making or the cognitive capacity of the pilot. So that is why they are banned, and self-medication is also banned. In the Calicut accident also, we had seen self-medication for diabetes. In the Mangalore accident, there were issues about self-medication. So this is a big issue. And the regulatory part is that why do we have a dichotomy in regulation when alcohol, which is a psychoactive substance, is dealt with strongly in the first case? Why not drug? Because drug we treat it as rehabilitation, which could take 6 months, but there is no suspension of license.
Right.
ICAO says that there has to be uniformity in the prevention and it has to be in consonance with the national policy. So if there is the NDPS Act, then it should apply to both alcohol as well as drugs. You don't have different yardsticks for different things. And the study which was carried out in 2019, after which this regulation came up, stated that after alcohol, these drugs are prevalent and these are serious in nature. That is why there was a need for the car to come up. But the car was not convenient.
But, you know, I just put this question across to Captain Randhawa, and he says that we are in compliance with FAA and EASA regulations, whereas there are some such as GCC countries who have changed their regulations and, as far as what is required. What is really the need, and how old are these regulations? When were they last changed? And doesn't this episode show the need for at least India to change its own existing drug testing regulations and rules?
So in 2022, that is the last record available, and that was a parliamentary question which was asked by one of the member of parliament. The answer was that 2022, 4 pilots and 1 ATC officer has detected positive, and the rule was explained. So at that point, nobody was quite surprised with the leniency of the rule, and it passed through the parliament. So at that stage, somebody or the parliamentary committee should have come up with the ICAO regulation, not a regulation, but a guidance that there has to be harmonization of rules with the national policy. So that needs to be taken up at a higher level with a serious note and with some sort of urgency. We have seen the repercussions. So it may not be directly related, but there could have been worse consequences. And then later people may regret. So this is and we see the prevalence of drugs and other problematic substances in the society. So this is bound to creep up.
Absolutely. And in fact, let me bring in Captain Kabir Malik also joining us. Captain Kabir Malik, this episode clearly highlights the importance of regular testing. If it can be done regularly for alcohol, why not have similar testing? Because this 10% testing norm with a little bit of additional random testing is clearly not enough. Because there has to be some deterrence for those who are in such responsible positions to not be consuming these substances that could compromise not only their safety, but their passenger safety.
You are absolutely right that yesterday I was on other TV channel also. The same statement I was given there that the safety compromise should not be there at all. It doesn't matter he's a captain or he's a something on other post, because it is after all is a question of the safety of the passenger as well as the aviation industry also. Once we are ignoring such kind of things in our daily routine checkups in the aviation, definitely we have to face some big consequences like it had happened in past years. The same thing has happened in this flight also. So that's why we have to be very particular, have to be very strong towards of these kind of checks of the pilots and the crew also, those who are working in the that time in the cockpit. So secondly, our government should be very serious towards of the aviation law, this drugs and BA test and everything, and we have to mandatory and compulsory. We have to find out if there is a medical logbook we are maintaining of each pilot and crew or not. If they are not maintaining, that means we are just calling a kind of incident. Inviting kind of invitation in future also. So that is our primary duty. We have to make a different kind of other kind of one body which they will be keep spying on the medical history of each pilots and the crew. That would be work, because on the ICAO, it's an international civil aviation organization which the norms and they declare which the drugs are not allowed to after consuming inside the cockpit. We have to be restricted. So these kind of crew and the pilots. So if we will be just follow such these kind of things, definitely we will stop kind of incident which is we are facing these days.
Okay.
So definitely we have to be very serious on this, how long and how much we will suffer and face to our passengers in this aviation industry already so much in the notorious stage these days because the ignorance of the seniors and the department which they have to be pay their duty on time and seriously.
All right.
So
Let me bring in Captain Randhawa back into this. Captain Randhawa, what happens now? What is the process? Does the DGCA have to get involved? Will the airline now ensure this rehabilitation? And who really is in charge of rehabilitating these pilots?
Rehabilitation, as far as the rehabilitation goes, it will be referred to the airline. Of course, the airline would have got the test reports and all that. And now in the talks with DGCA, they would be able to send this pilot to some rehabilitation center. Now that depends. Now, has the pilot taken some medicine which has got these, some of these offshoot of the drugs which are mentioned in the CR? The second point is, now my co-panelists are saying that, okay, we should have this test on departure, but they must understand that this test is a special test than in which a urine sample is taken. And this goes to certified labs. Now, like a place like Bombay, there are hardly 1 or 2 labs which can conduct tests on this. So how does the flight depart? If in case this has to be done at departure for every flight, then how do you have the testing?
But Captain Randhawa, surely the sample can be taken before or after. The point is that if there's regular sampling happening, then, you will at least find out if this has happened or not, so that nobody can go ahead and do this kind of an act and put other lives in danger. Surely
Yes,
that's better than having nothing.
Madhav, you can have this test, but the test report will not be available. And the pilot will be scheduled and he will have to take the flight. Now you will get the report after the flight. Actually, you lost the battle.
Yeah.
In first place, that person shouldn't have gone on the flight. Secondly, the random checking, which the CR says 10%, that can be increased. I don't know whether the airlines are still carrying out that 10%, and is DGCA competent enough to check the oversight that 10% of the tests are being done? I don't think so.
So that's a larger question. Captain Amit Singh, what's a viable solution? Because on the one hand, do you have other countries also doing this testing? Are there other best practices that India can perhaps adopt?
So it is not that, it is not similar to an alcohol test. Alcohol test is that in case you have had consumed alcohol within the last 12 hours or so. But a drug stays in your blood or your hair sample for about 10 days. So if you carry out more than the 10% sample tests, random tests, then you're bound to have a bigger sample size rather than one person being tested once in 10 years or something. So prevention is better than cure. So if you find one non-negative, so putting one person out of the cockpit is better than having consequences which we should not be talking about. So that is the prevention part. So education, before ICAO says before testing, you have to have education, you have to have clear groups, and there are 3 or 4 steps which are completely missing from our requirements, civil aviation requirements. So we are not educating the society or the pilots about the consequences of self-medication or drugs, the effect of drugs, how much do they stay in the blood, and what effect and what consequences do they have. It is not, solution is always multi-pronged. It cannot be one test that determines pass or fail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There has to be a multi-pronged approach, because this episode has highlighted the possibility of what such an incident can lead to, such a violation can lead to. Perhaps it's for the industry stakeholders, it's for the DGCA, it is for the Ministry of Civil Aviation, it is for the airlines to sit together and thrash out and work out a solution. But certainly the incident that has taken place of that in-flight disturbance, because this is not just turbulence, there are multiple factors, from turbulence to hydraulic failure, from the pilot itself not being inside the cockpit to who handled the situation, whether he was under the influence of drugs, which has now been answered. Yes, he was. What is the kind of situation that we're leading to? Perhaps he was, if not under the influence of drugs, he would have been there, he could have done his job better. Perhaps the situation of injuries would not have been there. These are many very different questions, but we certainly need to have an architecture and larger framework to ensure that there is adequate testing as far as the psychoactive substance is concerned. That's the sum and substance of what has come out of this episode, and certainly something that the government needs to take note to ensure passenger safety in India. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us, Captain C.S. Randhawa, as well as Captain Kabir Malik and Captain Amit Singh. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.